Hi all, we're doing Mark 14:66 through 72. If you haven't read the passage, then go ahead and cut the video and join me when you're finished reading through it. Obviously, we're looking at at Peter's disowning Jesus or denying Jesus, Peter's three-time denial. And I just want to point out two things in this passage. The first is that the servant girl, who, by the way, is a high priest servant girl, who identifies Peter the first time, and second time actually calls him out. First time she goes to him one-on-one and says to them, hey, aren't you one of them? And notice she looks at him closely. So she has seen him there. So she had been a part of the arresting party who had gone up into the Mount of Olives to arrest him. The second time, but by the way, notice it's one-on-one, just like Matthew 18:15-17 says. You go one-on-one when you have an issue with someone. So she went one-on-one to him and said, hey, listen. Well, then the next time she sees him, she says not to him this time, but to the group, and says, hey, he's one of those followers of Jesus. And, of course, he denies it again. But notice she's gone from one to a small group. And then the third time, in Matthew 18:15-17, remember, if there's a third strike, if you will, then you take it to the church, or if you don't have resolution based on reconciliation based on the first two meetings, on the third meeting you quote take it to church. Well, in this case, the church comes to, or those gathered in the court come to Peter, and they say, hey, we notice you're a Galilean, you must be one of them. Now, Galileans didn't look any different than anybody else. They all looked like Jewish people. How did they know he was a Galilean? Well, because he opened up his mouth, and they heard his, if you will, funny accent. He was like really Southern or something like that, where his accent came out as a Galilean accent, very pronounced. And they said, hey, you're a Galilean. And notice it says he begins to call down curses on himself and so on, which is to say he reverts back to his fisherman days, where he was a pretty typical sailor and probably had a sailor's mouth and so on. So that Peter really, by the time he felt like he's pushed in the corner, he is back to it reverts back to his former self. So there's plenty of conversation points there, from anything from what the servant girl had seen to their identification via the accent, and also, of course, the parallels between Matthew 18:15-17. So lots of conversation pieces. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.